Something just happened in Israel that most people missed. A red heifer has been approved. The Temple Institute is moving, and according to sources on the ground, the first stone could be closer than anyone expected. But here is what nobody is talking about. There is a condition that must be met before anything can move forward. And that condition, for the first time in 2,000 years, may have just been fulfilled. To understand why this matters, you have to go back thousands of years. In the book of Numbers, God gave Israel a very specific command. Find a red heifer, completely red, never worked, never yoked, without a single blemish. Burn it, collect the ashes, mix them with water, and use that water to purify the priests. Without that purification, nothing else could happen. No temple service, no sacrifices, no worship. The entire system of biblical worship depended on one animal, and for 2,000 years, that animal could not be found. Every red heifer that came close failed inspection. Too many non-red hairs, previously worked, a small blemish hidden beneath the coat. Generation after generation of priests waited. Generation after generation, nothing. But in September 2022, something changed. 5 young red heifers were loaded onto a plane in Texas and flown directly to Israel, raised under strict supervision, monitored constantly, examined regularly. And now, in 2025, they are approaching the minimum age required for sacrifice, 3 years old, which means the window is opening. But here is what most people do not know about what happens next, and it is not what anyone expected. The Temple Institute in Jerusalem has been preparing for this moment for decades. And when most people picture preparation, they imagine planning meetings and blueprints. This is different. The priestly garments are sewn and ready. The golden vessels are crafted and waiting. The musical instruments are built. The altar has been constructed. Everything needed to begin temple worship is sitting in Jerusalem right now, waiting. But none of it can be used. Not yet. Because without the ashes of a red heifer, the priests cannot be purified. And without purified priests, the temple cannot function. It is like having a fully built hospital with no doctors cleared to operate. Everything is in place, but one key is missing. Now that key may be arriving. Descendants of Aaron, the priestly line, have been identified and trained. A location outside the Temple Mount has been quietly selected for the purification ceremony. Rabbis with the authority to inspect the heifers have been prepared, and the heifers themselves are being watched around the clock. One single disqualifying mark, and the process stops. One blemish, one non-red hair, one sign of previous work, and it all resets. But so far, they are holding. And here is where it gets interesting. Because what happens the moment one of these heifers is declared acceptable sets off a chain of events that has not been seen since the days of Solomon. And that chain, once started, cannot be stopped. This is where ancient prophecy and modern events begin to collide. Thousands of years ago, the prophet Ezekiel had a vision. He was carried to a high mountain in Israel, and what he saw was a structure, a city, a temple. Not the temple that existed in his time, something future, something not yet built. Many scholars believe what Ezekiel saw was the third temple, a sanctuary that would stand in the last days. And then Jesus himself spoke of it. In Matthew 24, he warned his disciples about a future moment, a moment tied directly to a holy place, a place that at the time of his warning did not yet exist, which means he was pointing forward to something still to come. Now consider this. In the entire history of modern Israel, since 1948, only 2 moments have been called truly prophetic turning points: the rebirth of the nation and the recapturing of Jerusalem in 1967. Many believe what is unfolding right now in 2025 could be the third. But there is something else buried in Scripture that most people completely overlook. Something that connects the red heifer directly to what the New Testament calls the perfect sacrifice. And once you see that connection, the whole picture changes. Because this was never just about a temple. It was always pointing to something, and someone, much greater. And that is exactly where this is going. Here is what most news coverage completely misses. The red heifer was never just a religious ritual. It was a picture painted thousands of years before the canvas was ready. Think about what the red heifer had to be. Completely without blemish. Never burdened, never yoked. Sacrificed outside the camp, not inside. Its ashes mixed with water to cleanse those who had touched death. Now think about what the New Testament says about Jesus. Without sin, without blemish. Crucified outside the city walls, not inside Jerusalem. And his sacrifice, making clean those who were spiritually dead. The writer of Hebrews saw this connection clearly. He wrote that if the ashes of a heifer could purify the flesh, how much more could the blood of Christ purify the conscience? One pointed to the other. The red heifer was always a shadow, and shadows only exist because something real is casting them. So what does that mean for what is happening in Israel right now? It means this moment carries weight on two levels. For those watching prophetic events, it is a sign. For those who believe in the finished work of Christ, it is a reminder. A reminder that every detail in Scripture was intentional. Every command, every ritual, every animal, all of it pointing in one direction. But here is the part that nobody is prepared for. Because what happens after the purification ceremony is not what most people are expecting. And the timeline, when you see it laid out, is much shorter than anyone is comfortable admitting. Now here is where things get uncomfortable. Because there is a timeline forming, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. In 2022, the red heifers arrived in Israel. In 2023, the Temple Institute confirmed they were still qualified. In 2024, priests began final training. Now in 2025, the heifers are reaching the required age. That is not random. That is a sequence. And sequences have a destination. But here is what makes this different from every other prophecy video you have watched. This is not about guessing dates. This is about recognizing patterns. Jesus never told us to predict the day or hour, but he did tell us to watch the signs. He said, when you see the fig tree blossom, you know summer is near. He said, when you see these things begin to happen, look up. The fig tree is not just blossoming, it is producing fruit. And most people are too distracted to notice. They are arguing about politics, worried about the economy, scrolling through endless noise. Meanwhile, in a quiet location outside Jerusalem, a red heifer is standing in a protected field, waiting. And the priests who will perform the ceremony are not studying anymore. They are rehearsing. But that is still not the part that should stop you in your tracks. Because there is something else happening right now, and almost no one is covering it. While the world focuses on headlines and conflicts, something quieter is unfolding. The Temple Institute is not just preparing vessels and garments anymore. They are preparing people. Across Israel, men from the tribe of Levi are being identified. Genealogies are being traced. DNA is being tested. Lineages are being confirmed. Because you cannot just choose to be a priest. You have to be born into it. And for the first time in modern history, that line is being officially restored. Think about that. The same family line that served in Solomon's temple. The same family line that wept when the second temple fell. That line never disappeared. It scattered. It survived. It waited. And now, it is being called back. Young men in their 20s are learning ancient rituals their ancestors performed 2,000 years ago. They are memorizing the exact measurements of the altar. They are practicing the exact way to prepare the ashes. They are learning how to walk, how to stand, how to speak. Every detail, exactly as it was written in the Torah. And they are doing this not as a historical exercise. They are doing this because they believe they will use it, soon. But the priests are not the only ones preparing, because there is another group watching all of this very closely, and their response could determine what happens next. Not everyone is celebrating this moment. For some, the rebuilding of the Third Temple is not hope, it is a threat. The Temple Mount sits in one of the most contested pieces of land on earth. 3 religions, thousands of years of conflict, and one small hill at the center of it all. Any movement toward a new temple triggers alarm bells around the world. Governments are watching. Religious leaders are watching. Intelligence agencies are watching. Because they know what this means. If the red heifer is sacrificed, it sends a signal that says, we are ready to move forward. And moving forward means confronting the question everyone has avoided for decades. What happens to the Dome of the Rock? What happens to the political alliances that depend on the status quo? What happens when ancient prophecy collides with modern geopolitics? Nobody has the answer, but everyone feels the tension. And here is the part most prophecy teachers will not say out loud. The Bible does not promise this will be peaceful. In fact, it suggests the opposite. Daniel spoke of a time of trouble. Jesus spoke of great tribulation. Ezekiel spoke of nations gathering against Israel. The red heifer may be the key that unlocks the temple, but it may also be the key that unlocks something else, something the world is not ready for. And that brings us to the question nobody wants to ask. So where does that leave you? You can watch this and move on. You can scroll to the next video. Forget what you just heard. Go back to normal life. But something tells me you are still here for a reason. Maybe you have felt it for a while now. A sense that the world is shifting. A sense that something bigger is coming. A sense that the things you were taught as a child might actually be true. This is not about fear. This is about awareness. Jesus did not say, run and hide when you see these things. He said, look up. Your redemption is drawing near. That is not a threat. That is a promise. But promises require a response. You have to decide what you believe. You have to decide where you stand. And you have to decide before the moment passes. Because moments like this do not wait. The heifers are aging. The priests are ready. The vessels are prepared. The only thing not ready might be you. And that is a problem only you can solve. But here is what I want you to remember. Everything we talked about today is just the surface. There are layers beneath this story that most people never hear about. Connections between the red heifer and ancient Jewish writings that will surprise you. Connections to events happening in other parts of the world, right now, that seem unrelated, but are not. And a timeline that, when you see it fully laid out, will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about where we are in history. I am going to cover all of that in an upcoming video, but I need to know you are ready to see it. So if you made it this far, do one thing, stay close. Because what comes next is not something you want to miss. And by the time most people realize what is happening, it may already be too late.